So in this video, we're going to be going over the principle of have no judgment, compete, or compare. And this principle is one that I find to be difficult. But when we are able to do it, it really allows our mind to make a really big change. Remembering that because our mind, our body, our emotions are all a reflection of each other. They all influence each other directly. Some principles are more towards body, while some are more towards mind. So this one in particular is focused on mind. Having no judgment, having no competition, or comparing. So the first thing to cover about this is understanding why do we want to not have judgment, right? Competing and comparing are effects of judgments. Judgments is a very general term, and the definition of judgment we have to first be clear on. And judgments, I actually didn't understand judgments for about 2 years after learning about it. And then one day I discovered it wasn't what I thought. I thought judgments was just negative thinking. I thought it was just when we think bad about something, we judge it. And then later on, I found out that judgments also is positive thinking. And that therefore, judgments, my understanding of it was very different. So judgments is when we put a mental label on something, a mental labeled, a judgment. We put a story upon something. We give it a name. So when we do that, what we're saying is that the thing we labeled, a person, a situation, that it cannot be anything else. We stop seeing it for anything else besides the label that we put on it. So we start to generalize something. So a situation's happening, and then we call this situation a problem. So now that we labeled it as a problem, we judged it as a problem. Now when we think about the situation, we group it to this association of problems. Problems we feel are we don't like, they're bad, they don't serve us, they don't provide any benefits for our life. We wish they would just go away. There's a certain idea, a certain perspective on problems. When we label a situation as that, now we stop seeing the possibilities of the situation. We stop paying attention to what's actually happening in the situation. We just see it in this blanket of an idea, problems. So now a person. Now, if we go, this person is a problem. Now we associate this person to something negative. This person cannot serve to have a good purpose. This person cannot benefit you because you see this person as a problem. We labeled it that way. So that's the issue with judgments, is they don't allow us to see what's really happening. Judgment is an idea in our mind. It's a label, it's a story, it's an association. And then when we place it on a person, a situation, now we don't see what's actually happening. We see through this layer, this filter. And this filter is the judgment. This filter is the label. Now this also goes for positive associations. We say this is a great opportunity, right? This is the best place ever. So now we don't pay attention to all of the other things. We now are only seeing the good things out of this place, out of the situation. But what happens if there is something that is happening that is not good, that it may not be beneficial for us? But if we label it as really good, then we may not pay attention or even become aware of something that could be harmful for us, for example. So that's the issue with judgments. It doesn't allow us to see the full picture. It doesn't allow us to be present and to be aware of what actually is happening at this moment. We instead are looking at a situation, looking at a person through a lens, through a story in our mind. You see, we don't see what's there. We see through a story that we make up. The story is the judgment. You see, and judgments having a certain association. So competing and comparing is the same thing. When we compete, to compete, we have to say that something is superior and something's less, something's good, something's bad. We have to say these are winners and these are losers, right? And so when we see things in that way, there is a negative association to losers and a positive one towards winners. And same thing with comparing. We have to compare in order to compete. This is all just characteristics of judgments. Now, before we dive in deeper, we need to talk about the fact that judgments, competing and comparing, is part of everyday life. It's part of what we do at work, part of what we do when we're playing a game. Let's play a game. And if there's no keeping score, then maybe the game is not as interesting. So if you keep score, well, then now there's a winner and there's a loser. So then how do we adjust for a situation like this? And the way we do that is we don't be attached to these judgments, to this comparison. So how do we do that? And how does that work? Because if the principle is no judgment, compete and compare, then now we're saying that we can judge. So in reality, here's how we have this understanding of this principle. When we practice not judging, competing, comparing, that basically means that as often as we can, if we don't need to judge, compete, or compare, we don't. We let it go. We stay present. When we think, we don't think in judgments. We don't think in competing or comparing. If we need to for a certain situation, for business, for work, for an activity that we have to do it, then we do. When we approach judgments in this way, we don't become attached to the outcome of this judgment. We don't become attached to the outcome of this competition. But if we are constantly judging, which is what people are doing all the time, people judge as often as they breathe. That's how often, not only in certain situations, as often as you are breathing. This is because there are 3 layers of mind: conscious mind, the voice in your head; subconscious mind, and awareness; unconscious mind, your sense of self. Judgments are happening on the conscious mind, the voice. This is good, this is bad, I can't believe this thing. Oh, that's so ugly. Oh my God, it's so great looking. Constantly judging. And now on the subconscious mind, if we are doing it on the conscious mind, then we are aware that this is good, this is bad. We are aware that this is a problem. There's an awareness of a problem. And then also on the 3rd level, our sense of self, judging ourselves. I am so much better than these people. Those people are so much better than me. There's a constant judging that's happening. Once we start to really become aware of judgments, we find that it's as often as breathing. So to stop judgments, we have to start at the top and work our way down, starting at the most obvious, the loud voices in our head, and to eliminate those, and then we work our way down to awareness, and then our sense of self. So coming back into making sure that there's clarity around this principle, when we don't judge on the normal basis, when we only judge when it's needed, we don't become attached to the judgments. So that we can say, oh, this is a great situation. Or someone may ask you, what do you think about this movie? Oh, I think it was great. That's a judgment, right? But someone's like, really? You think it's great? I think it's terrible. I think the director did such a bad job. If we practice not judging, so now we judge because we're having a conversation. So we go, oh, okay, well, I thought it was great. And then someone goes, well, your opinion is you're so wrong. I mean, how can you judge it like that? We're okay. We can talk about it, or we just let it go. But it doesn't stir up emotions. There's not this sense that we need to defend ourselves. We're not attached to a person agreeing with our opinion. This is what happens when we are judging for the sake of communication, for the sake of everyday living, for work, for business, but when we're not attached to it. You see, this can only happen when we practice not judging when it's not needed. Most of the time, judgments are happening not during specific needs. They're just happening all the time. We're walking around, we're going through everyday life, things are happening, and we're constantly judging everything. So once you start to become aware of it, start to listen to how often it's happening, and you will find it's all the time. If it's not all the time on the conscious level, it will be all the time on the subconscious level. There's an awareness that you like this place, that this is a good spot, that this is a good situation, that this situation is not good, that I don't like this, I don't prefer this. It's a constant judgment. And this is why the emotions are constantly coming up. Because anytime when we judge something as not in favor, not good, something you disagree with, it triggers emotion. Emotions of stress, agitation, fear, worry. And every time when we judge something as good, there's a sense of excitement. There's a sense of joy, happiness, enthusiasm, gratefulness, and so forth. And this is why we as humans are constantly experiencing emotions as positive, negative, positive, negative, positive, negative. There's no peace. There's no centeredness. There's no connection because our energy is constantly fluctuating up and down. Our attention is constantly in our mind going, this is great. This is not good. This is wonderful. I love this. Oh my God, I hate this. It's just always in our mind, fluctuating. When we let go of judgment, what actually starts to happen is that our attention stops rotating here in our head so much. And now it comes here to the present moment. It comes here to the way we feel. We start to focus our attention towards action, doing the things we need to do. Our mind starts to think and what it is that we need to do, instead of our personal opinion, our judgment on life itself and everything in it. Because when we judge things, when we judge things, let me rephrase that. When we judge things, when it's not necessary to judge, it doesn't do anything for life. Take a look at your life now. When you are judging and there's no need, it absolutely does nothing for your life. It creates problems. It creates struggle, resistance. Because that energy, that time could have been spent on something else. There's no issues with something, but we sit there and we make up a problem in our head. And suddenly we don't like this person. Suddenly we don't like something in our life. We're not okay with it. But there's no issue. The issue was just sitting here, judging it, thinking about it, and creating an issue. You see? So when we practice not judging, we literally are practicing on not creating problems in life anymore. There will always only be situations that are happening in your life. Things will always be happening, but there are no problems. Without judgment, we don't label things constantly as problems. There is something that's happening, and there's something you either need to do right now or you don't do. There's only two choices, action or non-action. You neither do something or you don't do something. So life becomes really simple. We start to gain clarity around our life. Judgments is what creates a lot of fogginess. To accomplish this takes time. This takes a lot of practice, starting off with noticing the name calling that we have. Noticing when we see something as good, bad. Noticing when we really like something or really hate something. Noticing when we have a negative association to something. That negative association, even if we're not saying something in our head, that's a judgment. This is bad. This is scary. This is not good. This is dangerous. It's just in our head. And remember that what's in our head is what we are paying attention to. So one of the consequences of judgments, if I look at something, I go, this is dangerous, then now my body will start to feel danger. I'll start to feel fear, worry. Because my mind is looking at this situation and saying that this situation is dangerous. So now danger, I might associate danger with pain. I might associate danger with discomfort. So now my mind is focused on danger. I may even see a potential of what could happen in this situation. I make it up in my mind. I'm going to trip over this thing and fall. This person's going to hit their head here and this thing will happen. And then now I'm feeling the effect of these incidents. And now I feel worried. I feel painful. I feel anxiety, nervous, but nothing has happened. All this is just in my head. When we open our eyes and we look, nothing is happening. Everything is fine. But this is an example of what happens when we judge. We make up stories in our head, and now a regular situation now becomes a problem.